My name is Kemi King. I am the director for this piece, but here I'm also acting as the producer. So thank you all for joining us today as we take a peek into our process thus far in building what is to be an on-scene box. What we aim to share today is the first level of our development process, as we will start here in the development series before moving on to the main stage, production in April next year, 2023, and we will see you there too. Thank you. This week, our team is working remotely from Toronto, GD13, Hauraki, Kingston, GD7, and Takawa in Texas. And though we're all over both currently and ancestrally, today we find ourselves situated on the unceded lands of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe Nation, which we Treaty 27 territory, also known as Ottawa or Ottawa.
This work primarily carries the history of ancestors who come from the land of Ghana and West Africa, which is culturally where I'm from. On our lands, we are from the Akan tribe, and in an effort to re-indigenize our spaces, I use a teaching from Ghana, which is called Sankofa. And Sankofa, in a brief summary, sort of loosely translates to the phrase "go back and get it," teaching us that it is not taboo to return to the past and retrieve what is lost. In fact, it values its importance by saying that we cannot move forward or look to the future without acknowledging the past and examining how the stories we tell about the past dictate the lives that we are to live in the future.
Going back into your history, what narratives about Canada and its inhabitants were you taught? Like, legitimately. Take a second just to think for ourselves, past lessons actively wrote out people of history, perpetuating false narratives about Indigenous Canadians, placing the values of written word in contrast to oral tradition, and directly positioning and altering a reality that existed before contact. Our central characters in the piece recognize that higher powers have been playing the stories we've all come to know, and how complicit they have been in allowing them to exist. Though they can't change the footsteps that have been left on the ground, they can decide that now is the time to change where they step moving forward.
What role do you see yourself taking in making a new path? For at least the next 2 hours, you don't need to have an answer right away, but for at least the next 2 hours, we invite you that as we move forward together, take what we've known about our story and the relationship that your story has had to this land, and interrogate what steps you have taken to either stop moving or let someone walk over a path that was never theirs to try. As we are moving forward, let's take a moment now to introduce the rest of our team as well. Starting with
Susie.
Susie.
Hi, I'm Susie, and I am the dramaturg.
Some point, Susie, as soon as video will pop up, so we can see her, just not his voice, but next.
In the meantime, hi, I'm Jacob. I'm the web developer for the project. I use they and their pronouns.
Hi, I'm Simone. I am working on costume and set design. I use she, her pronouns.
And my name is Paul. I'm the playwright of the theater piece, and I use he, they pronouns. Feel free to switch it up. So again, thank y'all for being here. It's exciting. It gets us to work in development, and our hope today is to share with you some elements of our process. We've had a week in development thus far all together, though we not going to for a bit, and just give you a little glimpse into what this week has been like thus far. So what we will witness today, as we are bearing witness, we're going to go over who we are. Check. We will be going over what we'll witness today. That's a check, 2 for 2. We will then go over what is an unsaved God, or as it's more colloquially known, AvG. We'll do a little breakdown of the plot, because it will be a lot. We will then go over some dramaturgy with Susie. We will then do some sharing of excerpts. We'll go over our scene titles, characters, and then dive into a couple bits of script, costume design, web development, and then we'll get into a little bit of audience Q&A. If at any point you've got questions, you can either flag us for them and we'll make sure we get back to you at the end, or you can just hold them yourselves and then we'll get it. Awesome. Oh, same goes for y'all on Zoom. If you got questions, hold on to them or write them in the chat, and then we will come back to it. Perfect. So what is Anansi Gods or AvG? To start, Anansi Gods was born at 3:38 a.m. on July 14th, 2021, when I woke up from not sleeping, really upset about wildfire. Anansi Gods is a story in 3 parts that recalls viral memories of the court case from when Spider was found with treason. Inspired by West African folklore, Greek myth, and the stories of the Bible, what I'm currently calling this 3-tiered fable or parable reminds humans and gods alike how to stay true to yourself, stay true to your story, and prepare for the end of the world. Currently, and I say currently because this is evolved better, it interrogates the systems in which we place our faith, our understanding of agency, and stories about marginalized communities, and relationship to storytelling as a means of consumption in the modern age. For those of you who might be familiar with some other works of theater, in order to sort of give you some context for works that influenced it, it has its influence in works such as Love, Simon, Folklore by Walter Fulster, American Gods, Neil Gaiman, Black Dog 4 versus the World by Matt Heidi, Piano Boy 95, Gordon Tannehill, The Sampopa Trilogy by William Africa, and Oga Barima by Tibia McCarthy. Cool. So as we said, we'll be calling this a story in 3 parts. What do we mean by that? These graphics might not give you that answer, but it is a visual representation of those 3 parts. One thing we'll be doing today is the script of the excerpt and some visual are available, which you can check out these graphics at a later date, but these sort of represent the 3 parts. And this is where Paul remembers to give credit to an artist. The ones on the left and right was me with a Canva at an hour in the morning, but this one in the center is a piece that was created by a visual artist who's originally from Ghana. He is currently based in Toronto, Toronto. His name is Chima Fariba. He's currently also an artist on a cartoon show called Big Blue, but this piece is called The Throne, which was a piece that he created for the blood ceremonies, which were a charitable creation. But this sort of represents a various range of things for me, but the core of it is a young POC who happens to be stuck on a pedestal of rainbow chairs. And what we've done here, we've added a couple spiders to the image to sort of reflect on the theme in Anansi Gods. Cool. So the 3 parts. Part 1, Jack in the Box. After a counselor prescribes a journal, not a diary, to a high school senior, pages of homework and doodles of spiders soon become thoughts about a teammate, feelings about home, and other stories. When that book is then lost and found by an unknown number, Jack and their close friend Omar must do whatever they can to stop the curated collection of entries from being posted online in 7 days. Part 2, the trial of Kweku Anansi versus the Gods, Abridged. In another space and time, viral footage from a prolific and publicized court case, as well as evidence from the moral realm, leads us to follow the trial of Kweku Anansi, a Wednesday-born trickster who has unleashed chaos by giving humanity the ability to control their own stories. The Right Honorable Governor Pontius Pilate presiding. Part 3, Anansi's revelation. This is sort of where the piece itself takes place. On Judgment Day, while waiting in isolation for a visit from death as an act of protest, Anansi the Spider attempts to save humanity by staging their final story in solitary confinement, or in hiding, whichever you feel is actually what the case is. Hidden Part 4, or Part 0, depending on where you feel like this is the story, at Anansi Gods, a social media account that posts entries from the copy of Jack's journal. It can consist of a variety of things. We can use some ideas of pictures from the work in development, like photos of rehearsal, promotional photos, like graphics, or excerpts from the journal itself, like what might actually have been posted when Jack's journal is online. Titles can also be used as prompts for commissioned work by young, queer, and POC emerging self-inspiring creators, so that it's not just my words in my work that are being used in the piece, but as the piece sort of would travel from location to location, the goal is that Jack's journal is not only from my words, but other creators in the city who are genuinely creating the entries themselves from prompts found in the work. In the performance, the account can then be selectively archived and incorporated as an element of the world itself. as we remove the promotional material, we adjust the journal entries very badly. Well, with that, I will hold my voice and I will pass the digital microphone over to Susie,
Hello, all. I'm Susie Elmagar, and I was the dramaturg this week. Dramaturgy is the act of collaboration, being a creative co-conspirator and a researcher. So today here I'm presenting some of the background information about our world of AvG. First, on the next slide, we're going to learn about who is Kwaku Anansi. Anansi means spider in Twi, which is a Kankasa, a West African dialect of the Kan language. Anansi can take the shape of a spider, sometimes part spider, part person, because they are a shapeshifter and they take many forms. Kwaku means Wednesday born, and one of the aspects of Anansi, God or divine being that has many tales about them. They are a trickster god, such as Loki or Reynard the fox, so they are charmingly mischievous in all their deeds. But in African mythology, their domain is wisdom, stories, and in some tellings, even creation. They are an intermediary between heaven and earth and have the power to restructure both the human and the divine. In the world of our play, Anansi is disruptor of boundaries and binaries, a queer icon, and someone who can help tell your story. Next slide. So Anansi's origin. Anansi, which there's a type of tail called the Annan sesame tails, is a forest spider from West Africa. On the screen or on the display, you should see a map of West Africa. They are a figure from the African religious practice of the Akan people, which the Akan people are a ethnic group which has existed for thousands of years. They even have oral tales of them being in ancient Egypt, all throughout Africa, but mostly West Africa. This group includes the Ashanti people of Ghana. The Akan people, some of the great empires in their history are the Ghana Empire, which lasted for about 500 years, and the Ashanti Empire, which lasted for about 200 years. Today, as you can see pictured, the Akan people are mainly in the Ivory Coast, Ghana, and Togo. But Anansi traveled with people who were forcibly enslaved to the Americas in Europe, where the stories of Anansi, the spider tales, were told on new continents in new forms. These stories became an act of resistance. As parables and folk tales, they're easy for enslaved and oppressed people to tell in indetectable private ways as a way of maintaining and passing on their culture. Below, you'll see some of the other names for Anansi: Pompe Anansi, Brother Nancy, Aunt Nancy, Ba Anansi, and Sis Nancy. Anansi even transformed and became the figure Brer Rabbit. On the next slide, you'll see another important figure from African religion that is referenced in the play, which is the creator Nyame. Nyame means the shining one, God, or the omnipotent one in Twi. They are a sky god and creator. In some tellings, Nyame is male, in some female, and in some androgynous. Followers of African religion make no distinction between religion and other aspects of their life. Their beliefs are so closely bound to their culture that religion and culture are one. Religion is therefore not something people do at certain times in certain places, but is part of the fabric of living. Although a supreme being is above the living, lesser gods, spirits, and ancestors walk besides the living and guide them in the direction they must go. The symbol you see displayed is part of the Ndinkra symbols, which are a collection of symbols in West African spirituality that symbolize different concepts or associated with different gods. This symbol, the Gaye Nyame, is associated with Nyame. It means except God. What it means from a longer quote is, no one was at the beginning and no one will be at the end except God, because they see all and have power over all. So these symbols and this type of religious practices are important for the fabric of our play. On the next slide, you'll see the creation myths. So our play dwells in several different mythologies: West African folklore, Greek mythology, and Jewish traditions of the Bible. From this, we pull on several myths of origin. One of these is one probably familiar to most, Adam and Eve. But we are practicing something I want to call purposeful syncretism. Syncretism is when you merge or put together different figures or religious or cultural practices into something new. You put them together. So Lilith, the figure in the middle, is also a figure from Jewish tradition. However, Lilith was borrowed from Akkadian and Babylonian stories, which we don't have today. And their name means night creature or night monster. Now they are considered to be related to Lucifer and to maybe have been the first woman that appears in Genesis 1:1 before the fall. AvG seeks to recontextualize the stories, retell them in a way that we haven't heard before. Another first figure, Pandora, who has a jar that contains all ills, and when they open it, the only thing left is hope. So these figures are seen in the world of the play. Next slide. The form of this story is something Paul likes to call autobiomyth. It's a way of telling new stories in new ways. So Paul, as they said, was provoked by sanitized narratives, but also inspired by this idea of the biomyth monodrama from the work of Dibi Young Anit Africa, a Jamaican-Canadian poet and theater maker. So Dibi's work recognizes the connection between identity and community as both inextricable and sacred. AvG seeks to break boundaries of narrative by combining mythology and technology through interconnected web that contains in-person digital interactive components, such as Jack's notebook. Here you see references of other ways that the boundaries between storytelling, technology, and forms have been broken in the past, such as Art Tech House, a art experience that was founded by Black artists that uses tech to be an immersive place. So this is the thing, we are retelling these myths, but we're also retelling them in a new way. On the next slide, you have our world. So as has been mentioned, this is a narrative of many places. The three worlds that we see are the spiritual plane, where the trial and the jailing of Anansi takes place, the mortal world, where Anansi and Jack interact and where Jack and their friends live, and then also the world of story, memory, myth, as Anansi throughout the trial and online retells and revisits stories in the past. But the world of AvG is not only rooted in myth, but deeply rooted in the queer experience, drawing from ballroom culture and aesthetic. So ballroom culture actively resists the dominating cultural norms of society. Balls are used to express restrictive categories and to reveal their abuse as transgender, gay, and minority groups. Houses provide a space for queer youth to feel supported. Within that framework, spiritual and mythological figures like Lilith are positioned as house mothers that mortal adherents follow and find space to express themselves. Next slide. One aspect of the story, the mortal world, touches on experiences both inside and outside of the performance. So Nancy's human form, interacts with Jack, a young person still finding their stories through therapy, highlighting the trauma of being for queer people and people of color. Both inside and outside of the world of the play, AvG emphasizes the power of storytelling and rewriting narratives. In trauma theory, there is an idea that trauma can be an event or series of events that happens, and that if it is not addressed, it comes back to us in dreams or nightmares unconsciously. But we also have the choice to consciously retell, repair the narrative, and to tell how it might have been or how it could be. Theorists say by entering into the kinesthetic space of the performance event, we facilitate a sense of being physically connected to the bodies on stage and to the images they present us with. The performance becomes a charged space in which the opportunity, knowingly or otherwise, to attempt to bear witness to our own historical traumas. Through this, we ask the audiences to become participants in the narrative, the participants in rewriting the story. Last slide. As I close, here are some of my sources. One of the important work that we did in this was acknowledging those that went before us, those that have done the work. As we draw on myths, we're drawing on the stories of our ancestors and the ancestors of people we know. So it was important to do right by that. And I hope that this has been informative and that you can bring some of this information with you into the next part of our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Susie.
Thank you. The sharing of excerpts with possible. And let's dive into shortly scene titles. Again, there's quite a few.
So many.
There's so many. They might seem a lot when we say them also, but we'll have fun. We'll have fun. If at any point again, if folks are lost, let us know. I shall get. Brilliant. Scene number 1. Revelations, an epilogue at the start.
Scene 2, in the house of Most High, I call this court to order.
Scene 3, how spider helped snake swallow the sun, or another creation story.
Scene 4, OE prosecution of little faith.
Scene 5, Genesis, Exhibit A.
Olympus is falling down.
I made a bet in Eden, Exhibit B.
A Kiki at the house of Lilith, or as fates would have it, Exhibit C.
There once was a pilot who wanted to be a governor, or the pilot episode.
Pandora's inbox, Exhibit D.
Lucid dreaming about Golgotha in Gethsemane, Exhibit E.
Before recess, in my defense, Devil's Advocate will recount a bedtime story, but how Genesis and genocide share more than just a prefix.
I broke up with faith, felt cheated by fate, and got high off a fable that told me why I can't cry. And that's why love, like life, is a bitch, and then we die. Or, the first heartbreak was a big bang, and it sounded like the first drop into the bottom of a pool.
Can I get a witness?
Do a cannonball, narcissist. Exhibit F.
Pilot makes a stand, or the death of Pilot.
Nonce makes a stand. Or if you're reading this song for hope, to say I'm sorry from the bottom of my hearts, I mean it, I do.
How do I tell my parents we met at the Last Supper?
And finally, Exodus, a prologue at the end. Let's get into some characters, shall we? Gonna my glass, like I'm serious. We have, I also switched my mouse. We have Nance or Anansi. Inspired by the story of Prometheus in an act of protest, Nance means to share their gift with humans. However, all the lying, disguising, and people-pleasing since the beginning of time has made them feel like they don't know who they are anymore. Which one thing I'll add about the description that's not in the presentation. In terms of not knowing who they are anymore and feeling like they are more than one person, originally this piece was written as a solo performance. Through our development, we realized that it can actually hold up to 8 actor bodies. So as the choices of whomever produces it, from 1 to 8 is how many bodies they produce. Next up, there is Pontius Pilate. They are the judge in the Supreme Court of Eden. Doesn't like their job. The executioner, an entry-level job for someone impartial. There is God's advocate and the devil's advocate, the prosecution and the defense who get confused for each other all the time. The fates, immortal figures of folklore who dictate the lives of mortals and mystics alike. Nyame and the gods, the faceless faces and foundations behind the institution. Jack, a high school senior who just needs to apply himself. Nancy, a therapist. Omar, a teammate. Pandora, a friend. Adam, a mistake. Lilith, an icon. And Eve, a first. And with that, let's dig into the script, shall we? Brilliant. Here are a few scenes for your listening pleasure. Again, if anyone would like script or dialogue post in order to genuinely reflect on the word, let us know. Hit us up in an email or a DM. We'll begin. As recorded in the book of Ananse, chapter 13, verse 7, we follow our Heron through an epilogue of new heavens and new earth.
Because they burned sacrifices on the mountains and defied on the hills, I revealed myself to those who did not ask for me. I was found by those who did not seek me. To a nation that did not call my name, I said, here I am, here I am. The former things will not be remembered, nor will they come to mind. I will create new heavens and a new earth. I will not keep silent, but will pay back in full both your sins and the sins of your ancestors. Amen.
No. When you phrase it like that, when you really put things into perspective, my situation sounds pretty grim. However, one must first understand how easy it is to get caught up in the moment without fully weighing the possible ramifications. One lifetime, you're saving the world, and the next, you cause the end of it. Not an excuse,
Just some context.
not a trick.
That's the truth.
The truth is, no one in this courtroom wants to hear what I have to say, which is why I chose to stay silent.
But here,
This moment in time is between you and me.
and I can make this space whatever I want it to be.
I consider it the escape from reality, from the gravity of my actions, the likes of which have surely split the populations into factions. No matter when it feels as though the world is ending,
Everyone chooses sides.
who can get you to the next world and to a better life, you do what you can to be remembered as a winner.
Repent or run.
You do or die.
Leaving behind the sinners.
Better than me.
I told you, I am no martyr.
I was chosen.
And when you're chosen,
You sacrifice for your God and leave behind the world you've known to wander lost through stars and space in search of a new home. That's what you give for your last chance to see a new tomorrow.
I will only say this once. So listen well. I
We're going on, say.
Was woven to be a hero. Before I let this court get caught up in their story, know this. This is Jack. I gave them a diary,
A journal.
sorry.
not giving it away.
but for watching it be stolen and being too powerless to do anything.
Because I was stuck in the web of my own making.
I've taken things in my own life,
Chances,
fruits,
Lives.
been many, want many more. Now, I want control. Something I can make for others because I can't have it for myself. As all stories are connected in one way or another, some more than others, I can't tell my side of things without telling a few more. Where Jack enters my plot is not the beginning, it's more of a climax or the falling action. It's a beginning, the choice that's still spinning. They haven't decided yet because Jack's story is not over. I made sure of that. And that, folks, is why I'm here. How is a different story.
My story, my plot is as complex as it may be. It all started with a wish to meet the God beyond the trees, and I wanted a purpose, a duty to be something that means more than power or wealth. Starting this innate desire to be something bigger than myself. Above the sky lived my God, Nyame, as I called them. They sat atop a throne that towered over any ego. Under them stepped a jar that was known to hold every thought that Nyame ever had. All the stories since time took first breath, all the wisdom of the world in one vessel contained. Only the owner of a wisdom jar can open it, only them, and if they so choose, a guardian, a keeper, or a cupbearer. One day, while practicing my weaving, a messenger called to me to visit my God's kingdom for a special audience with Nyame. They told me a thread would hang from the clouds, that it would be my ticket to heaven, my first web, the same that I would take down as I helped create the earth. I tied it to my feet and pulled and flew close to the sun, further the moon, curious to know why I would be called here so soon.
Kweku Anansi, how do you do?
Well?
No, how do you do that? You're weaving.
You mean you tell me? I just listen to the thread and it shows the way to go, to find what I need to see, a gift I had always thought came from thee.
A kind ability I'm glad to watch you use well. I would like to see you use it for me. I need a trustworthy messenger to run an errand, and I am choosing you, Kweku Anansi.
Again? Another story? Another life? Can I really be chosen by the same God twice? Oh, can this one be a design challenge? I can make a design worthy of a god. Y'all saw the crocodile that I did last season.
What you will make will be corrections, the tying of loose threads. The fates have gotten bored and started waking up the dead. Ghosts are being dug up and you need to hunt them down. I ask you to use your powers of the web to make your way around. Some stories are unraveling, teetering on the verge of being broken, fractured, altered, permanently misremembered. I'm sending you to set things right or find a way to learn before the world ends in a knot of seemingly endless twists and turns. Find a cup you did not drink, a ball of fire on the brink, a child seated in the chair, and use this book to get you there. On your journey along the way, many people you will meet will have a piece of wisdom for the jar beneath my feet. Do this, and I give you what no man has had before, faith.
This book is empty.
You, Kwaku Anansi, were made to protect my stories. Use this gift to save what is soon to be mine, and I will gift you a home at my side for you and your kin above the skies.
All? But my past tricks or sins, it doesn't mean all will be forgiven.
Do you accept?
What else will I be given?
Spider.
Fine, I will. Just remember what I did for you the next time my story has a knot. Do not forsake me, nor act like you forgot.
I will not forget. Those pages are a sign of my promise.
My God had called me for a quest to seek what can't be found by mortal hands. I collected them all, every demand. Don't worry about what's happening in there. The charges sound serious, but God owes me, so don't take them seriously. I always make it out in the end. I am owed forgiveness for the things that I regret, the things I should have done differently but didn't. I know it looks bad, but fear not. I have my God's orders and my God has mine. So we say nothing out there and live every thought in here. I don't have to prove my innocence. They have to prove my guilt, and Father, they know not what they do. As recorded in the book of Anansi, chapter 5, verse 12, we follow our Charon through a session of deep breaths and clear minds.
Cheating shadows hide the truth from view, sweetest pure artist ever drew. When my soul was most perplexed and weary, mother, tell me, what am I to do? What's that?
Don't touch that.
Sorry,
It's okay. Which photo?
this one.
Be careful, Jack.
Sorry,
It's okay.
this one?
Family, siblings, and cousins.
You don't look alike.
What's stuff to find families?
Where's your dad?
Good question.
Oh, sorry,
It's okay. He was around, always present, just not around us.
I didn't know that.
How could you?
Well, why didn't you tell me that?
Why would I?
I tell you almost everything.
Almost. I tell you that you can talk to me about anything. You choose what to tell me.
You could tell me if you wanted.
I could, but I won't. I don't talk about myself often. I don't take it personally.
And how does that make you feel?
Very funny, Jack.
I'm sorry, but that's your job, isn't it?
It is, but if you like, we can tell a different story. You can be the therapist today.
I thought I told you to think of me as the person that I can talk to anything about.
I say a lot of things, Jack. In the end, when all is said and done, I can't tell you what to do. I can't write your story for you.
Okay, you're really therapizing me right now, and that's not what I need.
Oh, I have something you need? Okay, finally. Admitting that is what I call progress. Maybe therapy does work.
Okay, you didn't give me therapy, you gave me a book.
And what do you do with books, Jack?
Burn them,
Guess again, you got 2 lives left.
read them,
Yes, and
and the book is empty. You're not expecting me to write in this, are you? Because I'm not putting my thoughts down there for you to see or write a story or.
I don't expect anything from you, Jack. I'm not going to read it. I'm not asking you to write down any stories.
Then for fuck's sake, stop the riddles and answer me.
I don't answer to you, Jack. You're not a god. Okay, you have the power to find your own answers.
I'm sorry, that's your job, or so I'm told, to help me find the answer to my story. Perhaps something got lost.
Jack.
I come in every 2 weeks and expect something different, something to change, and is that not the definition of insanity? Trying something over and over again, expecting a different result. What?
What?
Fuck this.
Jack.
Don't fucking touch me.
Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
No, it's not, and I know it's not, and I don't like that I come here expecting to understand everything, like, I leave here even more confused,
Why do you think that is?
because every time I come here, I expect to get close to the end of the story, and I keep getting hit with another chapter, more blank pages expected to be filled, and I'm fucking sick and tired of trying to meet expectations.
So what would you like to do?
Fuck expectation, I don't want to, it's like, God, I keep putting shit in boxes, and then I'm expected to fit into those boxes, and then like the world is fucking freaks out when the box breaks and shit pours out, and I can't cover it, and it's like, fuck, of course the box is going to break it up. I can't fit myself and all of my shit in there.
Where would you like to put it?
In the ground, the earth, I want to bury it, I want it gone, me or my shit, just fuck it. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I didn't mean it, either me or my shit, I didn't mean it, but I did mean saying sorry, sorry.
It's okay.
Can you also just stop saying that it's okay? Just stop saying that, just stop saying that, just stop talking. I don't know why I said that.
Sometimes when we tell stories, they can take a life of their own. When we don't, sometimes they can take a life of their own. Stories can say things that we sometimes can't, but seeing a story sometimes can make telling it a bit easier, make the box a bit lighter. That happens here. I understand you didn't mean it. This is a place where you are free to open it. Let out the chaos, just ideally not at me. Okay, along the way, in your own space and on your own time, you'll find what you need to keep.
More.
It's all I've got, Jack. I'm sorry, I mean it, I do, but if you want your own answers, why not try something different?
What am I supposed to do with this?
Well, it's paper. Paper comes from trees, trees come from the earth or the ground. When you find you're carrying too much in here, or that your box is too full, bury something in there.
Anything.
Anything. No expectations. You're not a god, Jack, so don't compare yourself to one. The gods live shitty lives and have a fucked up sense of humor. Be better, be human, and know that that's okay. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I mean it.
I
Gotta go. Thank you. Again.
You're welcome again.
Okay.
See you in 2 weeks. As recorded in the book of Anansi, chapter 14, verse 29, we follow our Charon through a glitch of blacked out dreams and cute leaves.
During his agony, as he prayed, an angel came from heaven to strengthen him.
My head hurts. Sorry. Telling stories within a story doesn't get easier when I drink. I don't like when mortals drink, because usually it happens when they want a story, and no good story comes when you drink. I didn't know what else to do in here while I waste away. Waiting for my God. What happened in there? I think I got overloaded. My story is ending and Jack's is just getting started. Climaxes can be earth-shattering, and what you just witnessed was 3 worlds colliding because of one climax. High-level magnitude from one butterfly someone wasn't looking out for. Splat.
They're endangered, you know?
As we all just stopped caring.
Stop watching. And so they asked themselves what it would look like if they just left.
And here, now,
Here we are. At the end of the world because someone was too drunk to attack a butterfly.
Do you remember your first love?
I fucked up hard, okay? I admit it right at the start, and now my spiders are afraid of water.
If I'm to tell my story and fix facts in the process, I have to let it all go. No more fault, no more guilt. And before Eve came to Adam, Adam came to Lilith. One birth for prayer and another birth for free will. I've never seen anything like it.
It was dawn. Sun was just waking up to start drying all the rain. Adam was sitting by the pool. He'd been there for days, not eating, not sleeping. Without Lilith, grief was filling the hole in his bed. I kept watch above him while he laid under the covers, warm and thirst, but he didn't drink. 2 cups laid empty at his side, glued to his image looking back at him in the water. If you look at your reflection for long enough in almost complete darkness, you will begin
To see something other than yourself. A beast that sees you and you see it. Both of you just too terrified to run.
That's what Adam saw. Knowing that's how he saw himself, he grew an endless curiosity about what life would look like at the bottom of the pool. It wasn't wrong to help him, and I don't regret it, because God did nothing to help him.
What I regret is giving him what he asked for
For giving him what he wanted,
and not what he needed. And that's why it's hard to play God
weighing on someone's prayers versus
what they deserve.
I'm not sure what he deserved. I just remember him shaking, and then down came the rain.
Are you not working today, Spider? Your web's empty.
Web empty, heart full.
Would you bury it?
A blanket and concern. Take them both. I wish I could help you more.
I wish I could forget her. I want to forget her.
Well, I've been told I need to. Your father's requested I remove her from the fabric of my web.
That is why you do not work today.
I'm calling it protest.
Yes. I like it.
You've been in a protest yourself these days, but I fear it is against nothing but yourself.
I have stopped myself from feeling. I have emptied it into this pool and there's nothing left.
Nothing.
I want it to be nothing, honestly. That's what I deserve. This mirror shows my eyes what I look like. Mean, entitled, unlovable, that's all I see.
You need to stop looking at yourself.
Lilith said the answer to fixing myself is within myself. Where else am I supposed to look?
You're frozen on the outside. Why not look inside?
I hate it all. I would change every part of myself if I could.
Only God can do that, Adam.
Will my God stop listening to my thoughts? My words aren't worth the air he lets them breathe.
Adam,
I wish I could forget. I want to forget it. I pray and my cup remains empty. I can only ask, but you, Spider, you could leave it anew, so make it so.
you are not my creation. I don't play with what isn't mine.
Why not? In a way, if I'm my story, and my story is in my memory, and you keep my story, then am I not yours? Why not spin what is yours and it should be remembered?
Should is a strong word, Adam, even for you.
My father is silent. Return it with silence. You don't need to tell him.
I've never changed a story like that. I am to keep them, not ruin them.
You would be fixing it.
For who?
For me, for us.
Adam,
You said it yourself. You don't like seeing me in this. I don't like being in it. I feel stuck. It feels most unnatural. Against the natural order, it is most unpleasant, and I want to die. I may not know much, like how to make a web, or shed my skin, or how to fly with wings, like Lilith, whose name and face still singe my chest and burn my eyes like holes in hellfire. I know I cannot live in a world like this. Not say it, please. You're the only one that can help.
it was true. He didn't know a lot, but somehow he always knew what to say. I think he created poetry, but I was in no position to give him that kind of Adam, I do want to help you, I do, but even if I did say yes, I don't have the power to alter memories.
If you do. when you tell your stories, that it's the time and space itself self-less. Every branch bends to be closer to your words, and every leaf rises closer to the rose.
Every week.
Every week. Father knows it too, that's why he gives you stories to tell. Or have you held on to stories all this time and never told your own?
I should have never listened to Adam. I didn't realize it then, but Adam already had the ability to tell stories. We were both too stupid to realize it. No, too young. Maybe I knew and just didn't care, or maybe I hoped we weren't just another story for me to hold, that this time something might be real. I never told my story out loud before. I collected a few stories, ancient ones about legacies, biologies, and love. I decided that I want a love story of my own. If Lilith and Adam proved anything, it's that love is hard, and love is fickle, like fate, like a memory, so I dreamed of them instead. I'd often wake up sleep weaving images from my nights to the next morning.
If you can't change my story or erase it, then write me a new one that you have seen in your dreams.
He dunked the cups in water. Then when he finished, he took the cups, gave thanks, and gave it to me, saying,
This is Lilith's cup. Was her cup, as the story goes, was the right now, quick to announce it. That cup has to be your lips. And though my name is Adam, and to covet is wrong and sin, I would be jealous if you chose to fix it.
you're offering that I drink your feelings.
Sure. I see you weave in your sleep nights. Have you always wanted to do?
That night marked 40 days since Lilith had left. And after those 40 nights, I gave Adam peace. I sacrificed my peace for him because it was what he needed, what I wanted. I learned 3 things that night. The first, sometimes you give yourself what you want, and that's okay. This time wasn't one of those times. The second, don't take in someone else's feelings, even if you want to, especially if it's because you think that doing that will help them drink it. And lastly, I'm a lightweight. Adam left the lakeshore and stayed in my web, and that night, for the first time, I lucid dreamed a story about leaves and ribs and scarlet handcuffs. I remember strong breeze, new life breathing into Adam, speaking in tongues of fire, licking lips with lightning, the first time he really felt alive, and the first time I brought someone to life. I turn over in my web and look at dawn through tired eyes, face to face with daybreak. I wake up next to him before he leaves the world we made. He looks satiated, and I look different in Lilith's old corset. I look cute. Specific.
Unrealistic.
Used. I used a piece of Adam after his heart broke. I used my powers to create something that would make our world forget Lilith, the mother, the figure of Adam's dreams. I became Eve, and
She consumed you, lost in the extravagant fancy of the first to call himself man. My Adam, he was never mine, and I, his so aptly named woman, who was never real outside of his own mind.
sorry, is not real outside of his own mind. We were living in the world I made for him that night, and we've been there ever since. My magic was powerful. He was a liar who told himself the stories he needed to hear, but he didn't get the whole story right. My great power was not only the gift of storytelling. I could make my own stories. Eve was my first story, but she could only be controlled to a point because she also had free will. I made her with an impulse that came from my want, so yeah, the rest of her life's choices are kind of on me. 3 sides to every story. A, B,
And me.
the truth. My great power is as the all-seeing eyes, bearing the responsibility of witness to truth and keeping it for myself. And as a truth keeper, I can promise you that I would never lie. Again. Okay, starting now. So yeah. I should have never listened to that.
No wise friend once told me that love, like life, is a bitch, and then you die.
I guess I did start the rapture. Guilty as charged. Maybe I deserve to be here no matter what my prayers are. Sorry to unload on you like that. Where are my manners? Did I ever tell you the one, or did you ever hear the one about why spiders are afraid of water? We run because we don't want to drown. No pools, no floods, no tears, I mean it. I do, after all. Have you ever seen a spider cry? It's not pretty. If you haven't, well, you're shut out of luck because you won't be seeing that today. I'm sorry, but I just can't. That's life. As recorded in the book of Anansi, chapter 18, verse 1, we follow our Charon through an apology of squared pinkies and undecided ending.
And surely I am with you always to the very end of the age, as the afternoon darkness comes over all the land, as the earth quakes and the rocks split, when the tombs break open and the bodies of many holy people have died raised to life. We will run to the holy city and dance, dance, dance.
I should thank you for this second chance, but I don't deserve it. I get a lot of second chances that I don't deserve. I'm not sure what I've been waiting for. Some kind of grand finale. Shakespeare ended his career with fireworks and a marriage. I don't know if either of those are the endings to my story. I just know that it needs to end.
I've gone to a point where I only see one option, and I'm not trying to escape. I just need somewhere where I can't harm anyone, ruin anything. More than I already have. I need
A way out. Took you long enough. Well, I think that's my cue, folks. Perfect timing. Forgive me. I didn't know it would be so anticlimactic. I've never been this far into the story before. I'm usually gone by this point. I just wanted to see what would happen if I stayed. I wanted suspense. What? Don't look at me like that. It's my story. Sue me. As a prologue to the end of the world, recorded in the book of Anansi, chapter 0, verse 1, we follow our Charon through an ending of bright songs and big fun.
look, they are coming from the clouds. Every eye will see them, even those who care to them, and all the people on the earth will mourn. Because of them, it so shall be. Amen.
So my name is Simone. I'm in charge of fashion design, set design, and this is kind of what I see for the characters moving forward. Next slide, please. So this is a quote from Lucy Carter, and she is one of my biggest inspirations when it comes to fashion design. She's working Black Panther, award-winning. I'm drawn to her because of how she devoted herself to storytelling, to the characters and their life, even down to the beating, the embroidery, every single detail she has thought of and read through the script. The quote says, my favorite part about fashion design is the artistry of the job. You meet with a director or visionary to discuss ideas. You research the character and figure out the components of their look through your own vision. You create a color palette for a film, television, or stage, medium, and discuss with the director and photographer who then lights your colored subjects. So again, referencing back to Black Panther, we can really see how she's done this. She's also done a lot of movies. I'm not sure if you remember with the Martin Luther King movie. She was in charge of that. So she has quite a range, and that's my inspiration to also have that same range. Next slide, please. So this is my story, my inspiration for Anansi. This is a storyteller. This is the trickster. And there are many, many stories throughout West African folklore, even Caribbean folklore of this character. So next slide, please. So we start with Anansi's incarceration. I chose to use the ground because it's a grounding color representing the earth. And within the ground, like we need more grounding in the system in general. I'm choosing not to use orange because of the systematic normality that we're expected to see someone in when they're incarcerated. So that's a big deal for me, making sure that we have equal representation and showing what we actually need in our system through color and texture. Incorporation of stones and foliage is something that will represent how long he's been there. Something that shows how he's been fading into the system more and more as another representation of what incarceration looks like here. Kind of fading into the system, kind of forgetting about it, almost as if they're turning into stone and the vines are starting to wrap themselves around. Ideally, the vines are intertwined with the metal just to make the metal a bit softer and not have it be so harsh when we're looking at the character. The one in the middle is Nancy, look number 2. So this is Anansi's human form. I chose to give them a natural color palette to help them blend into the human world, making them easier for humans to connect and not feel so overpowered by the greatness that is in us. Because some people really, they see the spiritual world and they kind of get overwhelmed. And then look number 3 is the storyteller. This is what I imagine their natural guard to be. As you can tell, all 3 carry the same headpiece, which is uniting them as one. With Anansi, I wanted to steer clear of traditional kente cloth and focus on the colors that actually live within this world and not using a cloth to kind of have to say, hey, this is West African because we have a kente cloth, instead of just enjoying the colors that come with it. So the next slide, please. So for Jack, I wanted to give Jack a little bit more flavor in terms of the style. The reason I'm choosing a bomber a jacket, next slide, please. Because we see Jack as a student who's taking on his life, choosing a Letterman jacket felt like the right choice. It felt like a way for him to express himself outside of his journal. So with that, we have the symbol of Anansi, which represents wisdom and freedom, right up on the top right. We also have an Afropig, a spiderweb on the back, and a few other symbols that we see in this magical world. Again, keeping within the greens and that theme of earth and grounding. Next slide, please. So the final character I wanted to represent is Lilith. Next slide. So essentially, Lilith is the mother of death and the first wife of Adam. So I wanted to use a bolder silhouette and color to show off the power of Lilith. We want her to feel like we know her, or we should know her, but we don't. So with that being said, this is my interpretation of what a stronger character would look like within this. That is a complete total opposite from Anansi and Jack. Just to kind of show the balance of what creatures live in this world and what guides and spirits live in this world. Throughout all, the colors and silhouettes have been carefully selected, inspired by Greek mythology and traditional West African silhouettes to bring forward characters' personality and represent them the best I can. So if you see this, I hope you enjoy them. If you have any questions, feel free to hold off until the end, and I will answer those for you.
Hey folks, how's it going? My name is Jacob and I'm here to talk to you guys a little bit about the transmedia elements of the project. In addition to our wonderful stage production, AvG Gods features a digital online element that will allow audiences to further explore the world of the story in new and unique ways. So the project was, as previously stated, originally conceived as a blog that would play host to Jack's journal entries, where audiences could explore and interact with his musings and experiences after each. The project now exists as what I like to call a mini. After all, in a play about stories and storytelling, there are so many opportunities to explore the world in greater. From the mythos that inspired each character to supplementary information relating to their narratives. In the titular trial, the mini internet is designed to be a familiar, organic, and dynamic digital storytelling experience that gives the users the freedom to explore the world how they see it. So how does it work? The website is built in a largely decentralized manner. Instead of thinking of it as a single website, think of it as numerous smaller websites, all linked together to create a web of stories. Made up of blogs, news websites, social media pages, and more. Each page is linked to an assortment of other pages. This allows you to explore the world at your own pace and choose your own path of story. If you want to bring us onto the website, actually. Wonderful. So here is sort of a prototype of what the overall website is designed to look like. So our first web page here is, well, the web. Here we have a traditional social media website where the plays mythical figures are given a platform. Here we can find links to, if you want to scroll down a little bit. Here we can find links to other pages that interest each character, excerpts from the play, or simple posts on whatever interests. As we bring in our acting team for the future production, this page can function as a space where our actors can explore their characters and bring their own voice to the story. This project is more than an extension of the play's narrative. It is here to share experiences and stories from different real-life perspectives, giving our artists the opportunity to influence the digital world. The goal of this project The goal of this project is ultimately to bring in as many unique voices as possible, from fictional characters to the actors in the project to the audience themselves. The internet today has changed how we interact with them. At our fingertips exists an entire world of experiences born from the lives of different cultures, races, classes, sexualities, each one providing us the opportunity to learn and grow as global citizens. But so much of this information, once it's online, exists without context. It's data on servers, far removed from the lives from which they originated and the time from which they first came. By the time that they reach our screens, it is completely decontextualized, and the original lives are no longer relevant to the story. There's a beauty and an opportunity in this kind of information, but there's also a danger. This work exists to reflect the duality of this and explore how such digital spaces can expand on the world of the narrative, both for better and for worse. You want to bring us back to the top there. Do you want to click on that ad? Wonderful. So this is The Creator. This is our news platform featuring a variety of articles relating to the Anansi AvG's case as it happens. This page gives audience members a timeline of the investigation and subsequent trial into Anansi. This page will eventually play a post to play excerpts, interviews, videos, and images from the trial, giving all sorts of new perspectives into the story, those involved, and its wider consequences. In the age of information, nothing is private. Court cases have become viral events which face scrutiny of the public. These become dialogues where the official information on a case and the public response occur with each other in real time. We reflect this within our own digitals, where the events of the case are represented in the play are also reported upon in official and unofficial channels across the website. If you want to bring us back to the main page or to the news feed, if you want to scroll down a little bit there, yeah, let's hit Lilith. You want to just scroll through that slowly, thank you. Here we have a blog containing entries from Jack's journal. This is the original concept for the website. In curating this section of the project, it was important for us to keep his voice while removing his autonomy from the story. We see the theft of a story from its original context, uncredited and used to warp the previous storyteller's account. Across the entire platform, the goal has been to take this story and recontextualize it over and over and over again. If these were real events in our world, what would become of the narrative? How would a sensitive story like this be stretched, warped, and ultimately betrayed to fit the needs of those involved? What would these new narratives look like? What kind of response might they see within this space? Each post is a sentence or a phrase, seemingly poignant on their own, yet clearly ripped from whatever the context was. Pretty, but meaningless without the experiences that create. We want to bring us back to the main page one last time. And right down to the bottom there, wonderful, and that link. Great, this is our personality test. This is our website device, and the current iteration of this page contains a simple personality quiz where you can figure out which Anansi AvG's character you are. The goal of this page and future pages like this is to put the narrative in the user's hands, adding a little bit of fun and perhaps a little bit of freedom to explore and influence your digital narrative. For future iterations, I'm looking to add interactive pages where audience members can respond to prompts, share their own thoughts or ideas. These responses can be viewed by the rest of the community as they explore the digital space. These pages are all about giving you a platform to reflect on the play and how it relates to your own experiences. Really, the transmedial element of this project is all about perspective. Not just our perspective, but it is about that of the characters. This is a real play which exists in the real world, which is still kind of crazy to all of us working on this, but the mini internet is an exploration of how the story exists. When we bring a story to life, what becomes of it? We release it into the wild, and who does it belong to then? How will it influence the lives of those who interact with it, and how will the lives of those who interact with it influence the story? Wonderful. Do you want to bring us back to the main page then? Fantastic. As we move forward with the project, these are exactly the kind of questions that we want to explore. The project will be scaled up considerably, featuring more websites with new perspectives and interactive experience, new pages exploring the original mythology of the characters, sections featuring artistic contributions from the community and team members, and different social spaces to reflect different facets of each character's personalities. This isn't just to create more content that users have to sift through. The idea is to create something which feels familiar and organic. You aren't supposed to be able to weave through all of the information to create a unique or to create a single coherent story. You interact with what interests you, pursue the information that you have questions about, and you begin to forge your own path. Potentially you might go through the website and never come across the same website. Hypothetically, each one of you has created your own story within this world, forged your own path, and created your own unique experiences that you can then go and share with everybody else that is participating in the project. And with that, I want to pass it back off again.
That's basically our presentation. Thanks. We're leaving space for questions. We've got questions for you, but I hope you have questions for us. Yeah, the piece is really cool, wild and wacky, and like the web pieces Jacob was saying, there is so much and there's so much possibility, and we're also expecting failure, but we're expecting to learn from that failure as well. Yeah, questions? Any questions from online? Yeah.
Any questions? If not, we got some for you. Yes.
Just with the internet aspect. When would that be occurring? Would it be occurring before the show, after the show, during the show? I'm just wondering about that, like how it flows.
Yeah, before the show, during the show.
And after the show. The idea is, think of it as an online event occurring, let's say, right now we would hypothetically say during the launch month of the production. It's not something that you're limited to exploring during the production, but it is something that is made available to the public as the production.
It's like an ancillary event.
Yes.
We have the play, we have the lead up to the play, which creates excitement for it. Then you have the story, you have the live theater event, and then based on that, people might decide to go and explore more about the story and go different avenues. And in a sense, animated research all into the play.
Yeah.
Okay.
The information I think will be made available to, or when audience members purchase tickets and when the marketing cycle for the project begins, so that it is available for anybody who might be curious beforehand to learn a little bit more about the show, or still available after the production for anybody that has seen the show and wants to learn more.
Yeah,
I found it extremely helpful and enriching to have that background dramaturgy shared with me at the beginning, in order to put into context a lot of the detail
in script, which then came afterwards. And I'm curious to know if the website ancillary event is something that you're offering to the audience as a similar kind of enrichment or background, or if there's something else that is part of the show that does that. Yeah, certainly both, I think. The website acts as both, or in all of the online capacities for you to be able to interact with this piece. I think it both acts as a way for you to sort of like form your own experience and understanding of the work, as well as give context. I think something that also credits to Susie for that dramaturgy presentation, something that we discussed as we were building during this development week was in terms of influences for sort of the dramaturgy package, as Susie has made their own. Something that we use as influence was Theatre Pasmarai in Toronto have been known to create these sort of visual guides leading up to a performance. So after an audience member purchases tickets or Eventbrite, whatever, they're then also sent the information that's sort of if you want context beforehand, or for those who have accessibility needs or issues, it sort of gives them the knowledge of what is going to happen during the show. Like if there's haze or if there's a gunshot, for example, it lets them know all of that, as well as what each scene is about, what's going to happen. So it really allows folks, whether it's an accessibility thing or just not having a deep knowledge of theater performance that might be a little unconventional, gives them sort of a foundation for them to be able to get to. So with that said, yeah, absolutely, that's something that we are looking at having.
We had a question here, then we'll go online.
No, I'm following up on what Rebecca was looking at, this idea that it's creating a unique experience, I guess, for people who maybe don't even come to see the live theater production, but they will get an experience. They will get some kind of experiential exposure to the work that might be completely different than a live performance, but equal to from their perspective.
Yeah, something that really interests me about the work are the 3 possible avenues of like when you start to interact with the work, because I think that someone can come to see the play and not witness like the live drama or even like the online aspect and just sit with that. Yeah, I think that it really falls through with the building your own story and like figuring out ways to get to know more, like even know less if you are happy with what you saw. Yeah.
So I'll just follow up briefly on that. Just this idea that some of the play would be available online. Presumably some of the actors performing it, which is since the pandemic has opened up this whole idea, which is a bit of a can of worms, of equity performers or professional performers doing a live theater show, but also having their work available in an online context. Obviously not the whole show, but just, I mean, it's really fascinating. It's really interesting, but it opens up, it opens up a crack in that division between what is film and where actors are represented around that, what they can and can't do, and live theater, which is, you know, you're just on stage for that performance and then it's ephemeral and so on.
Yeah. I think that we have a lot of feelings about what live theater is, and especially through the pandemic and how that has changed. So I think maybe to say that we're using this as a possibility to explore and kind of do whatever as we like you're in the midst of redefining what live can look like. Yeah. Thank you.
We're really into this definition of like liveness within theater performance as like a shared experience in real time. So not even necessarily needing to be like sitting in a space with someone in this physical environment in this peaceful moment, but even something like on social media when someone's posted something on like Tumblr or Twitter and you see that like 50,000 other people have retweeted this, it's like, oh, that's a moment I'm sharing with these 50,000 other people of, oh, I also relate to this, or I think this is funny, or I think other people should see this. So yeah.
Josh, question from online.
Okay, first question, I'm just gonna go in order as they appeared, was, can I take the quiz from Japheth?
Yeah. Screw it, post the link in the chat.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And the next, Doug asked, who is the target audience?
Great and controversial question. Who is the target audience? I perhaps we might have different answers, but for myself, my target audience is what I believe the target audience is anyone who can take in a story, literally anyone at all. Something that we have sort of ripped on quite a bit, and myself that I've been sort of at odds with is as I am like a Black queer artist, Black queer neurodivergent artist. A lot of times when I create work, a lot of people ask the questions of like, okay, what is this work doing for the Black community? What is this work doing for the queer community? What is it doing for the neurodivergent community? And having to really like siphon an understanding of the work for these specific groups, but this isn't necessarily something that is created for a specific group, whether that be a specific group of any identity. And so therefore it's a piece about storytelling for those who can participate in storytelling. Yeah, that's my ideal audience.
Yeah, fair enough. I more or less agree, except for like the Vogue at the beginning, there's a lot of cussing in that, so maybe not for the children. But there's also swearing in the play, so maybe not for the children, but yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone
Another question, kind of, I think kind of an audience member asked that is if there's going to be access later to like a recording of the performance, which I kind of think we touched on. And then someone asked about the adherence to versus divergence from Anansi lore in all or many of its versions. So those two questions.
Good questions. Yes, in terms of recording or things being available after, yeah, I mean, sure, we are recording today. That was mainly for like our use, but I think absolutely also in case sound sort of came in and out during the Zoom, that might be useful. And again, our PDFs of script that can be made available. So I'll say again, if you would like that, get into contact with us, whether that be through Zoom now or over emails, whichever it might be. Yes, we can make that available to you and to y'all for a person. For that latter question of the Susie, what was that terminology used? The divergence of or
Your adherence to or divergence from Anansi lore.
Adherence to or divergence from Anansi lore. Yes. Originally when this piece started, really was not sure why, but truly when I woke up at 3:38 a.m., it was like eyes wide awake and there was just a spider in my room. And it just started like on my notes app. There was no intention or whatever, but it had just started. So that was sort of where that like came from. And then in terms of, yeah, knowing when to go close to or to divert from, that was also something that we talked about. I realized I needed sort of a framing device within the piece in order to just like have the story make sense. The way that the parts are sort of integrated with each other is that it's not all part one, then part two, part three. It's like part 1, 3, 2, what, like it sort of weaves in and out. So having a grounding piece like the first piece that we read today of how Spider helps make Fall the Sun or another creation story, or how and why we tell stories or another creation story. It sort of takes inspiration from one of the Anansi stories of how Anansi got their gifts from Sky God and how Anansi took those gifts from Sky God and brought them to the people. Those were primarily like the only two that I took, only to have that foundation, solely because I didn't want this to be like, this isn't necessarily a piece that's like about Anansi. Like this is not a story about them. They are not the main character. They're the device or the vehicle for this story. So getting too much into it, I think would have made it focus too much on them. But then I realized that they also are still integral in the fact that they are curating the whole thing. So sort of towing that line of that, if it got too deep, it would then make the story about them versus using them as the vehicle for the story. I hope that answered your question.
And there's one more online. Thank you for sharing this work. I'm curious for each of you, what is the heart of the show? What in this moment is it really about?
Yeah, what is the heart of the show for you? What is this sort of really about for you?
I can go first. I think for me, it's about Jack and kind of figuring out who he is. Like in the story, we have a bit of resistance towards the journal, resistance towards change. I think that's kind of where my heart is set for this entire story, and also having that spiritual guide that can relate to you in human world and relate to you in the spiritual world as well.
For me, I think it's, you know, with stories and storytelling, Anansi is the first storyteller. And I think that as an exploration of the lived experiences of our mortal characters and the mythological experiences of the figures that we've drawn from numerous cultures, it is about how these stories exist in the same place, how they interact, how they conflict from one another, and how they occasionally dominate one another. And that fascinates me, and I think that that is especially relevant in sort of multicultural, not always peacefully multicultural.
Good answer. Yeah, I think that I'm really obsessed with the idea of one, like telling stories, but also the fact that you can take control of your narrative. Something that Paul always says is that like you've been dealt a set of cards, but how you play them is up to you. And I feel like that is really integral to the piece where Nancy is like, I do tell these stories, but also maybe I will change them. And then also giving Jack the opportunity to then like change their story, or at least letting them know that that is a possibility. Where like you're like there's fate, there is rules, there's destiny or whatever, but you are the one who gets to decide what path you're going down. And I think that's something that's really important for me. Oh, an answer.
Interesting. I was like, I don't like my voice. What is the heart of the story? What's for me? I think the heart of the story for me is that really it is never too late to make that change. I think something for Nancy is that like having existed since time immemorial, they have seen story after story get twisted and manipulated, and they have sat back time after time after time. And they are now at a point where they are recognizing like it is happening again. And if I do not do something now, that will affect the course of the future. So if I can't change where I've come, but I can change what's happening, like I'm not a martyr, I'm not gonna die for the cause, but like I'm gonna die for myself. And I believe that that in myself is the thing that's willing to die for. So I think that's where the heart of that is, that change can be made once it's realized, happen. And yeah, what's the story about? I think, yeah, it truly is that like what a higher power has set out for you, what you feel like the trajectory is that you are going on is not where it is that you have to go. That path can change at whatever point of time. It is up to you to decide what you want your story to be. And sure, you will keep encountering the bunch of things that like the gods are throwing at you, but like how you deal with them is up to you, and you can still get to where you want. So.
Cool. I'd love to toss 2 to 3 questions max to the audience. Online also respond in chat and we will see it later. Thank you. I would love, do you have specific questions that you want to ask? Just
One's left forward.
okay. Yeah, so a question for you folks. What is something within the work that is missing? Like obviously there's chapters missing. But are there things that don't make sense or things within the story that you're like, this is a thread, but we haven't, like, what's going on there? Yeah.
Well, I'm curious to know about the online component, that whole aspect. And I really liked what was said earlier too about having a thread through the actual drama on stage. And I wonder if there's a thread in that component too, because I think you're opening like a huge can of worms to have pre-show, during show, post-show content to explore. And I love that it reflects the drama's need or desire or goal to sort of present multiple stories for people to make their own perspective, they could come up with their own perspective, but I wonder if there's also sort of a cohesive thread, a framework within the online content. Because I worry, like, I don't like social media anymore, I'm becoming very weary of it, like, as a millennial, and I don't love it, and what it does for me and my mental health, and like, what are we saying in the story with this online component too? Like, is there sort of a goal to contain it somehow or not? I don't know. That's where my mind goes in terms of a thread.
Thank you. Rebecca, it's like.
I think something I want to know more about is the repercussions and the situation of Jack's journal being posted online. It's against his will, is that it? There's like someone has taken it and threatened to post it, is that what's happening?
Yeah.
Okay, yes, I'm very curious about it, and how that affects them and what's gonna happen.
I was just gonna say that throughout the presentation, I felt my mind stretching. Because I'm trying to understand, and I don't think I have to understand, that's I think part of the point. But I am interested in like the through line of those three separate stories and how they come together.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like all that to say, it's very intriguing and very, like, I want to see the whole thing now because like, you gave me like a little taste and I recognize the flavors and it tastes good and I want the whole dish, you know?
Yeah. What we're hoping for. Thank you. Yeah, and sorry, I just said we're not gonna answer that question. Sometimes we don't actually have the answer. Cool. That's great. Thank you. Anyone else before we move on? Anybody? We'll read them later. And then this one. Yeah, and a question of where do you think or feel the story is going and where do you want it to go? And in the same vein where you not want it to go.
I don't want to monopolize. I have lots of ideas because you guys brought so much inspiration. I want to know more. I think Rebecca said about Jack's story and like kind of the mortal realm. Like what happens when his journal becomes, if it becomes public, and what the consequences of that are in his life. I'm curious about.
Also, Jack, like, I'm curious about it, and I think that says a lot in terms of just my own expectations at a theater. Like, I want, you know, a thorough line of protagonists to come forward and save the day, and so I think I have to question that of myself. And I love the idea of like the actors and everyone contributing their own I don't know, their own imagination, their own creativity to the process. I love that, but I would love to see, I think, some sort of through line and more like Paul. Like, I think it's okay to have like the Paulness be sort of not central to the story, but because I don't know, because the humor and like, what am I trying to say? I think it's okay to have sort of like a guiding post or pillars, like flags along the way to say, okay, this is the tone of the story. And the tone of the story for me, as you presented it so far, is very much like a Paul-ness tone, like a fun, wonderful, bubbly tone throughout. Do you know what I mean by that?
I am gonna respond to this one, and I think that there's so much of Paul. We did not read the stage directions. The stage directions are like all of this person. So like, but also really fun. And that was something for this one, I was like, we don't have the time to be able to properly incorporate them, but.
Yeah.
There's Paul and there will be so much more Paul, but.
That's great.
But I'm glad that even within them, the pieces that were like shown today, that you felt that that was an aspect that could be like heightened.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And I think all that is, and what I mean by it is just like, it's nice, I think it's wonderful to have something presented that makes us question, you know, how we perceive a drama unfolding overall and kind of a different approach to the theater going experience. I think that's always important to present new ways, but we do need to have those bits that make us feel tethered.
Yeah.
sometimes.
Absolutely, thank you. The last question I wanna throw out, is like, in terms of specifically the digital components, I'm wondering if there are, like, how much do you think that you would actually be interested in participating, and also, like, when? Would it be, and on TV Gods is happening, and then here's the link, and you would go to it before the show starts, or like just before you're gonna see your show, after your show, like, do you think, or do you think that you won't interact with it at all?
I've interacted with it just before the show.
Yeah.
Probably in that, whatever, 20, 30 minutes before curtains up, that's when I can see myself like, this is
Really?
cool.
Yeah,
And for me, I think I would dive into it afterwards, like, I would probably want more, like. Yeah, I'm just being vivid because I'm curious about art and about artists, and, you know, I would want to know more about how you got there, and so I think I'd be tempted to go afterwards for myself.
thank you. If there are no other comments, holding for comments,
During, personally,
yeah.
I think I need my handheld because I'd forget about it after probably just with me or like beforehand. I wouldn't necessarily go online to see anything. But during, if there's like moments within
To
to
pause?
encourage
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
Wasn't there a thing with like Twitter seats? Wasn't there a production on Broadway where they had like a dedicated area for people to go on Twitter and like do it live during the show?
Yeah.
There's also like a really infamous play that we did in Queens at one point in undergrad, when I was there at least, it's called Three Penny Opera. And it was like Twitter on the screen, people could live tweet while they were watching the show.
Yeah.
It ended up being horrible, but those are options too during the show, I think.
Absolutely, that's something that Black Dog 4 versus the World by Matthew Heidi also does. It incorporates a Twitter account. The Black Dog is sort of like an ephemeral like bit character within the piece who is only seen like through Twitter. So tweets will pop up during the performance, and they do encourage folks to be on their phones so you can like notifications on, see them as they're coming up, as if you're someone within the world right, as well. So yeah, right. Any floors open again for any final comments at all, could be about the questions or not. It can also just straight up be like, that was a lot and y'all gotta figure out how to make it edible, you know?
Yeah. Last minute for those online as well.
I mean, there's quite a bit of responses online. I will see if online has any questions.
Last minute for this call of last minute, because we want to respect people's time. But
I just want to say that I enjoyed this so much. I didn't know what to expect today, and it just has made me so excited about the piece. And personally for me, I love puzzles, and so I love having all the pieces scattered and putting together myself. I just love that kind of theater. So it's just my own personal love, and I see that in this, and I enjoy that very much.
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you. I will say there is a thanks that I was told to say that I did not say for the last couple of minutes because we're still under time. I am going to say it as I scroll up into my notes. Anansi Gods was brought to you in part thanks to many souls. I will first shout out the folks here at Tactics for giving us this platform. Thank you very much. Thank you to this stellar team as well. Thank you to Josh, who is currently managing our tech right now. Love you, Josh. Thank you to the folks who are on screen. Thank you to y'all. And yeah, thanks to many souls, from housemates, to friends, to mentors, to parents, to guardians, to the ancestors who watched patiently as I made sense of the images they placed in my head. Thank you. See you next year.
Yes, Jay.